Hey Hammers fans, before we get started, make sure to drop a like, leave your comment, and subscribe to the channel. That way you won't miss any West Ham news. Look here, West Ham fan. It seems the soap opera of recent weeks has gained yet another unexpected chapter. After the surprising return of Łukasz Fabianski, now important information emerges about Michail Antonio, and the truth is no one was expecting. This kind of twist in the middle of September. It all started with the much talked about overhaul announced by Graham Potter. The manager arrived full of promises, saying it would be a summer of rebuilding, betting heavily on youth energy and more athletic players. The speech sounded convincing, but in practice it was almost a full clear out at Upton Park, or rather at the London Stadium. There were 12 departures since the end of last season, and for many fans, some of them hurt more than expected. Goalkeeper Wes Foderingham was the last to leave, closing the list until, boom, the counter went back to 11 with the unexpected return of Fabianski. The veteran keeper, already 40 years old, had left the club upset, especially with the way Potter had handled his exit. But time has always cooled things down. Potter and Fabianski sat down, talked, and made peace. And with that, he is back in the squad ready to fight for a place, even if many see him only as an experienced option on the bench. And this decision raised a curious question. Is Potter really trying to rebuild West Ham's old guard? Because it wasn't just Fabianski who left when he began his cleanup. Big names such as Aaron Cresswell, Vladimir Kufal, and Michail Antonio also said goodbye. Together they had accumulated 33 years of service to the club and over 1,000 appearances in the Hammers shirt. It was a risky bet, but in a way a necessary one. For a long time, fans and analysts had been calling for a squad refresh, more legs, more hunger, more youth. But Potter himself ended up contradicting his own words. After opening the season with 3 straight defeats and conceding 11 goals, he rolled out the same old complaint. The squad lacks leadership. Hard not to sound ironic since it was precisely the veteran leaders that he had shown the door. Hey. Despite that initial stumble, a certain air of optimism began to surround the club. The double signing of Mateus Fernandes, a box-to-box midfielder, and Sungutu Magasa, another promising youngster, reignited fans' hopes. They cost £60 million combined, but at least they showed a clear direction, fresh blood for the team. And in that context, Fabianski's return looks contradictory. A step backwards, some would say, but it can also be seen as a practical move. After all, the transfer window is already closed, and having a veteran keeper as third choice is something quite common in the Premier League. The 3-0 victory over Nottingham Forest just before the international break gave the impression that the team was finally on the right track. But the positive mood took a hit when the news came through Niklas Füllkrug was injured again this time, while playing for the German national team. The deja vu was immediate. Exactly at this time last year, he was also sidelined for 3 months due to an injury with the Mannschaft. Suddenly, the fragility of the Hammers' attack was laid bare. Callum Wilson, who already has a history of physical problems, is the only experienced centre-forward available. And that's where the buzz about Antonio comes in. After all, if Fabianski has returned, why not bring back the Jamaican striker as well? And it didn't take long for speculation to take over pub talks, and fan groups could Michail Antonio, just like Fabianski, turn back and wear the Hammers shirt once again. The story is almost like a soap opera. Antonio, now 35, turned down a renewal on shorter terms and reduced wages. He wanted something more favorable, but ended up walking away empty-handed, and to this day remains without a club. Technically, as a free agent, West Ham could still sign him, even after the window closed. And with Füllkrug's injury, it seemed the perfect opportunity for a return. But reality isn't that simple. Even though he has kept himself fit, still training. With West Ham's under-21s, the club has made it clear they have no intention of re-registering him with the first team. Sources close to the board, including people linked to David Sullivan and Vice Chair Karen Brady, claim the door for Antonio has been firmly shut. Curiously, despite being without a club, Antonio was still called up by Steve McLaren for Jamaica's World Cup qualifiers. He was on the bench against Bermuda and Trinidad and Tobago, but didn't come on. Many believe that was deliberate to avoid the risk of an injury that could complicate potential negotiations. Even so, no matter how much the fans may dream, the message is crystal clear: Antonio will not be returning. The idea had already been ruled out shortly after Füllkrug's injury, and now it has been reiterated. The striker keeps training, keeps fit, but he will not be registered again as a West Ham player. And here comes a curious detail that has intrigued supporters. Unlike other veterans who left with emotional messages, interviews, or even farewell videos, Antonio has posted absolutely nothing. Not even a thank you after an entire decade wearing the shirt and becoming West Ham's top scorer in the Premier League era. The silence fueled theories that he might be saving his goodbye for a triumphant return, but all indications suggest that will not happen. In practice, what remains is the frustration of many fans who saw in him not only a goal scorer, but also a symbol of the club's resilience in recent seasons. He was that player who, even without the technical refinement of the biggest names, compensated with strength, desire, and a commitment that always resonated with the stands. On the other hand, it's understandable that Potter wants to turn the page once and for all. The project is clear rejuvenation intensity and a more modern squad. Betting on Antonio now could be seen as a step backwards, a sign that the board does not trust the plan already in place. And let's face it, consistency is essential in any rebuilding process. Of course the doubt lingers: what if Füllkrug stays out longer? And what if Callum Wilson, as so often before, also gets injured? In that scenario, Potter would practically have to improvise and attack something that could cost precious points. Perhaps. In such moments, he might even wish he had Antonio as a card up his sleeve. But in football, decisions need to be made firmly, and West Ham seem determined to move forward without looking back. Antonio, for his part, confirmed in a recent interview that he is in talks with clubs both in England and abroad, but chose not to reveal details. He hinted he is waiting for the best offer. His future remains an enigma. He may end up in a smaller league, he may surprise with a move to another Premier League side, or even accept an adventure abroad. What seems certain, at least for now, is that his story with West Ham has come to an end. For supporters, it's a mix of nostalgia and disappointment. Nostalgia because Antonio represented an entire era of effort, sweat, and important goals. Disappointment because many expected him to leave through the front door with a farewell worthy of all he had given. And so after Fabianski's return, the speculation about Antonio comes to an end. Potter is not rebuilding the old band as some thought. He is in fact trying to compose a new symphony with youth, pace, and energy. Only time will tell if this path will bear fruit, but for now the message is clear at West Ham: the future has already begun. If we stop to think about it, the situation of Michail Antonio and Łukasz Fabianski perfectly symbolizes the dilemma West Ham are facing right now. The club is caught between the need to move forward and the weight of its historic figures. Potter, when he took over, made it very clear that the goal was to renew the squad. But when problems arise, such as Füllkrug's injury, it's only natural that the fans look back and miss those names who so strongly represented the Hammer's spirit. Fabianski, for instance, returns almost as a godfather to the younger players. He may no longer be the starting goalkeeper, but his dressing room experience is valuable. And this is where the difference with Antonio lies. As beloved as he is, his return would directly impact tactical planning and the distribution of minutes for the new forwards. That's why the club has drawn different lines for each case. What's curious is that this dilemma isn't exclusive to West Ham. Many Premier League clubs live through this delicate balancing act. How do you maintain identity and tradition without holding back progress? Manchester United, for example, spent years stuck with veteran players, unable to make room for new talents. Arsenal also suffered until they finally struck a balance between youth and experience. West Ham, therefore, are trying to avoid that mistake. The relationship with the fans also deserves attention. Hammer supporters are passionate, critical, and feel the club has a soul of its own. To them, Antonio wasn't just a striker. He was the face of the fight against the Giants, the symbol of resilience. That's why not seeing a proper farewell hurts more than many might think. At heart, what we're seeing now is a kind of clash of generations. Potter is betting on youth, the board is backing him, but the collective memory insists on looking at the recent heroes. Fabianski returns to calm things down a little, but the message remains firm. West Ham's future won't be built on nostalgia, but on the boldness to bet on something new. And the big question remains, will this path actually work? Only results will tell. But if Potter fails to get the team clicking quickly, the calls for more veterans, and perhaps even for Antonio, will certainly start echoing once again at the London Stadium. And that's all for today's West Ham news. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with fellow fans, and of course subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, you Irons!